I'm Carol. I'm going to show you how to make vanilla bean macarons today. And pretty much what I have in the mixer right here is 1 pound of powdered sugar, 1 pound of almond flour that I've sifted together, and 2 teaspoons of ground vanilla bean. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the mixer on. And in this little container here, I've got about 0.35 of a pound of frozen and then thawed egg whites. And pretty much everything right now is at room temperature. So I'm going to go ahead and add my egg whites to our almond flour. And you can see it's going to just come together. So what I like to do is just give it a good scraping. I'm just going to go over here and grab a spatula. And we're just going to scrape everything down really fast. All the sides and the bottom. And kind of just scrape down the little paddle here too. And we're just going to turn this on for a few more seconds. Take this off here. Just kind of scrape down the sides. And I'm going to go ahead and cover this with plastic wrap because I don't want the top to dry out too much. And then pretty much the next step is going to be mixing up the boiled syrup or meringue mixture. So we'll do that next.
So Carol, what are you putting in there now?
Okay, so now I'm starting the meringue part of our macarons. And basically what I have in here, again, is 0.35 of a pound of fresh aged egg whites. Ideally we use egg whites, fresh egg whites that are between 3 to 5 days old. We'll have to sit in a container at room temperature. And the reason behind this is because we found that by using fresh aged egg whites, it actually provides a better, stronger shell for our macarons. So don't fret when you see that or think, well, is that really okay? It really is okay, and it does provide a very good macaron. So again, in this bowl, I have 0.35 of a pound of the fresh aged egg whites. And to that, I'm going to add just a pinch of this product here called Just Whites. It's basically just dried egg whites, but it helps to kind of stabilize the egg whites when you're whipping them up. So again, just a pinch of that to our bowl. And the next thing that I'm going to do is get our syrup going. So right here in this pot, I have 1 pound of granulated sugar, and I'm going to add 1/4 pound of water to that. And I'm just going to go ahead and put that on the stove right now. Now when you're mixing the sugar and water together, you want to be careful not to splash any of the sugar granules onto the sides, or else you have kind of like a crystally mixture, and you don't want that. So just very gently stir your sugar and water together. I'm going to go ahead and put my thermometer in here. And pretty much I'm looking for like a medium-high heat. I don't want to go too crazy, so that just about there is fine. And basically what we're going to do here is we're going to cook this syrup until it reaches about 235 degrees. I'm sorry that it's kind of hard to see, but yeah, so we're going to cook this mixture to about 235 degrees. And from there, when it gets to that point, 235 degrees, I'm going to turn on my mixer to almost the highest speed. It's like the 8th speed on our KitchenAid. And we found that in doing so, from that point of hitting that temperature to turning on the mixer at that speed, it times it perfectly so that when you get to 240 degrees, or the softball stage, your egg whites will be just about whipped enough for you to go ahead and add your syrup mixture. So I will meet you back in a few minutes, and we'll just let that cook till it gets to about 235. And something else that I like to do, if I do notice that there's like a crystally kind of buildup around the sides, just taking a brush, if you have a silicone one, that's always recommended, but just kind of lightly go around the edges with a wet brush, and that'll help to resolve that issue. Because yeah, you don't want any kind of crystally sugar added to your syrup. So I'm just going to kind of brush that down.
And do you find that this is like critical in the macaron production? Like not having any crystals whatsoever?
Yeah, because the reason why I learned this was from my mistake. And I'll explain that in a minute, but actually right now I'm going to go ahead and turn on the mixer. And again, we're going to turn this up to pretty high. This is speed 8 right here. And just a few more seconds and I'll be at the softball stage. Kind of cool down a little bit, maybe give our egg whites about 20 more seconds. Okay, and now I'm going to go ahead and add our syrup here. And you just want to go ahead and pour it rather slowly. And we through the house one. I'm going to use this. Give your honest opinion. Okay, and pretty much from here, now that all of our syrup has been added, we're going to return the mixer up to speed 8. Just like that. And again, we're going to let this cool down for 5 minutes. What I was saying before with the crystal buildup along the side, I actually found that through a mistake one time where I hadn't brushed down the sugar in the water, and pouring the syrup then, it resulted in a very kind of grainy, not so nice macaron. The end result was really not so good and actually had to be tossed. So yeah, if you ever do see that along the sides of your pot, just make sure you always brush down any crystallized sugar with a little bit of water. And if you have a silicone brush, that always helps too.
Okay.
Nice
So,
photo bomb.
we have sheet pans lined with regular parchment paper, and we have a template here that we made. It's just from a full sheet cardboard, and then we put 2 refrigerated stickers on it. It's a perfect size for macarons. And we did 5 by 8 per. And then you're just going to spray it with a nonstick cooking spray, lightly. And then wipe to make sure all the excess is completely over the entire chicken. And that's it. And then we have a disposable piping bag with just the plain coupler tip in it.
now that this has cooled down for about 5 minutes, we're going to go ahead and kind of switch things back now. So I'm going to take my meringue off and put my almond flour mixture back on the mixer. And from this point, we're pretty much going to add our egg whites, our meringue, in about 3 additions. So I'm going to start by adding, and I just really eyeball this part. So I take about 1/3 of our egg whites, approximately. Go ahead and turn that on.
And that's a low speed, Carole?
Yeah, right now I'm just stirring it. And we're going to add our next third out. And that's actually where I'm going to stop with the mixer. This last third that I have here, we're actually going to fold in by hand. And what I like to do is just scrape it down one more time while it's in the bowl, and then just let it go for a few more seconds. Mix for a few more seconds. Now we're going to come over here.
Am I in the way here? No.
We're just going to transfer everything to this big bowl here so it's easier to mix it up. Last third of egg whites. I'm just going to fold them together. And the stage that I'm doing right here is what a macaron actually is. It's the process of folding more or so than the actual cookie name itself. And you have to be really careful because if you overmix your dough here, they're going to be soft and runny like flat pancakes. However, if you don't mix it enough, you're going to have like almost little like Hershey Kiss type macarons, and you don't want that either. So I'm just kind of continuing to mix, making sure that everything is incorporated. And then a little test to kind of see how your dough is to hold your scraper about 12 inches above the bowl and look and see how it's flowing. And you basically want the nice flow from your scraper back to the bowl. It should be very nice and flowy. It looks like we're pretty much at that point. See how it pretty much comes down in one steady stream? That's what you're looking for. Just like that. And basically from this point we're just going to pipe them out on our greased sheet pans here. And after everything is piped out, we're going to let it sit for about 15 minutes in order to develop the shell a little bit more. And after that 15 minutes is over, we're going to go ahead and bake them at 310 degrees. And what we do is 310 degrees for 6.5 minutes with the damper closed, and then another 6.5 minutes with the damper open. And that's the macaron.
Type of macaron, it doesn't take much effort. You can see it's a pretty loose dough. You're just going to start in the middle of your circle, apply pressure, and then come around so you don't make a tip.
Sorry, takes a second. Go.
Alright, a little trick we found to get the cardboard piece out from under the parchment paper. You just lift it out with a scraper or whatever small tool you can get underneath, and then just slide it off. And then you can just put it on a rack. The 15 minutes that you wait after they're all piped is once the last tray has been piped. So you're going to get about 3 trays of 8x4s, I think, on one tray. So then you're going to wait 15 minutes after the last tray has been piped, and then you're going to let those sit for 15 minutes to harden a little bit, and then you're going to put them in the oven. So after they've sat for 15 minutes, we put it in the oven. And it will vary. Usually we get a full 3 sheet trays, but it will vary depending on the weather, how volumized your egg whites are, how many you got from each batch. So we really can't do a count every time. So we turn it on. 6.5 minutes with our damper closed. You might have a different kind of oven. And then we open the damper and we do it for another 6.5 minutes, and then they're done.
And pretty much when the macarons come out of the oven, obviously we have to let them cool down before we wrap them. The way that we like to do it here is basically on a sheet pan. Just group them together very closely. And you can stack them too high. I'm sure other people go even higher than that. But we can basically put one batch on one sheet pan with parchment paper in between. And then we bag it and put all the shells in our freezer. And basically when who is responsible for filling the macarons, when she gets to that point, she'll take shells out of the freezer and let them defrost in the cooler until she's ready to use them. And she'll fill these macarons with a white chocolate ganache filling. Basically, all the macarons that we do here, the filling is what gives the macaron its flavor. I'm sure there are other people who might flavor their shells. Basically, we add color. If you want to look over to what Tracy's doing right now, we're actually doing pistachio right now. So that has a little flavor added to it. And of course, has the vanilla bean specks added to it, but that's pretty much it. Everything else is just color. Yeah, and really no other flavor is added, just the filling. And from there, once they're in the case, they last on average for about 2 to 3 days. In the summertime when it's more humid, you might get a little bit more life out of them, but on average it's about 2 to 3 days at room temperature in our case.
What's the other side? Go the other way.
I can't because there's the stopper there. Oh, Hercules.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Alright. Okay, our vanilla bean macarons have come out of the oven. And basically this is the end result here. What you're looking for is to have a good foot on the macarons, which this does have. This kind of roughly little bottom here is called the foot. And yeah, you can just see that they're nice and dome shaped. Have a nice little sheen to them. That's what you're looking for. Yeah, this is the finished product. And we're going to fill these with the ganache icing.
Thanks, Carole.